Chapter 73. Something dropped out of the sound. Something in the fullness of the rhythm section, the crunch and growl of guitar, suddenly thin. The guitarist, Richie Fernandez, looked at his instrument in confusion. The effects he'd layered into the mix were gone, replaced by the finer tones of an acoustic guitar. He shook it between strums, flicked some switches, and stamped on the effect pedals he had in a circuit on the floor. With a low tolerance for being made to look like a dick on stage in the middle of a gig, Richie held a hand up into the stage lights, looked to where he thought the sound engineer would be at the back of the hall, and started gesticulating and spitting his demands while strumming the occasional chord. Then it was the vocals. The compression and transducer twisting Sickening Jimmy's voice disappeared without warning, and he bent over a stage monitor to hear his lyrics come out clean, with perhaps the hint of some harmonics in the upper. The band clattered to a halt, shaking their heads in disgust. Richie was livid. He unstrapped his guitar, slung it into the wings, and strutted to the front of the stage where he began yelling at the sound engineer, veins writhing in his neck and flecks of spitty hatred spraying into the stage lights. Sickening Jimmy stood on a monitor, extended both arms, and raised his middle fingers at the booth where the mixing engineer was situated, his face drawn with contempt. The rowdy element of the crowd Mr. Thumb had encountered earlier was seriously kicking off now. They gathered before the iconic frontman and had pretty much started assaulting people around them. Fan-fucking-tastic, the lead singer hailed the auditorium over the PA. Oh, this has just got to be our favourite venue, motherfuckers. We are the rope service. We decide what we play. These dickheads gave us the set list. Us. They tried to tell us what to play tonight. Ha! Fuck you. Do not try me, arsehole. Never test me. It will not end well for you. We decide what we play. Now get your shit together behind that desk or I swear I'll rip. His mic went dead, and Sickening Jimmy was left mouthing voiceless threats at the venue management in a steaming rage, inaudible over the jeers and insults of the crowd. Dissension was spreading along the front and into the centre of the house. The once passive people were being forced into action. The mob of hooligans had escalated their aggression, forcing bystanders to lash back and defend themselves. Folks got knocked off their feet by their neighbours, who were themselves struggling to remain standing. The crowd turned on one another. Anger flared in the chaos. In all the disarray, many hadn't followed events and hurled scorn at the band for not playing. Others took umbrage with anyone nearby for the slightest offence, a toe trodden on or an unsolicited shoulder shove. Richie Fernandez was launching objects at the mixing booth at the back of the hall. His projectiles all fell short of their mark and landed in the crowd amidst yet more confusion. Meanwhile, Sickening Jimmy had noticed something more serious kicking off down the front. Security guards, of a similar build as the bouncer outside, had emerged to quell the turmoil. Heads shaved bald, their shiny domed skulls matched the rounded units of their shoulders, arms and chests. Aided by a fleet of detention drones, they towered over the squashed and beleaguered fans at the front and began hauling individuals out indiscriminately, paying little attention to the idiots that really needed ejecting, and just grabbing anyone they could, beating and pummeling them into submission while they were about it. From his vantage point on stage, Sickening Jimmy was desperate to guide security in the right direction to the real troublemakers. But the goons were having none of it, and continued bashing and slugging away at easy targets. Upon seeing the nose of a 15-year-old girl being bust, Richie Fernandez stopped lobbing things at the sound engineer and hurled himself from the stage instead. Landing on the guards' backs, grabbing and clawing at them, he locked an elbow around a neck and dragged one of them back. Without hesitation, a phalanx of muscle-bound meatheads fell upon the guitarist and carried him off, restraining each of his limbs and leaving him powerless in a writhing, roaring rage. On stage, sickening Jimmy turned away. The riot unfolding before him was bad enough, but now he also had to confront his own cowardice. Why hadn't he helped? Protected his fans? These people would do anything for him. After all his songs and his anti-establishment attitude, what was he doing? Walking away. Gutless hypocrite that he was, without an ounce of integrity. What a charlatan. Before he got to the wings, a stage drone working for the venue hovered up to him with an extra large tumbler of something to drink. The sort of refreshment he took between songs to soothe his voice. Jimmy took a gulp and turned to hurl the bastard thing into the chaos behind him, but stopped himself. This wasn't the usual throat-soothing concoction of herbs and liquids he had these days. There was something stronger in this fucker. He peered into the tumbler and shrugged. Ah, fuck it, he thought. Why not? And downed the lot. Before he'd even finished wiping his wet chin on his arm, the stage drone had produced a tray of other options. Shots of stronger liquor, some powders, some pills. Sickening Jimmy reached out and began slamming it all home, his face creased with self-disgust and pure relief. Then up strode the heavy-set drummer, full of purpose. It had been murder getting Jimmy into rehab, and here he was, crumbling at the first sign of trouble. The hairy percussionist slapped the tray of temptation from the wretched bloody drone and took his bandmate by the shoulders. The singer whimpered, eyes wide in alarm, then headbutted the drummer squarely in the face. Mr. Thumb watched the two roll around on stage in a clumsy grapple. He admired their passion, but, in his judgment, they lacked technique. At least it's picking up in here, he mused, putting his feet up on the seat in front. It surely wouldn't be long before it reached a tipping point. Ray had better get a shuffle on, or they'd be superseded by events, which might well prove fatal. Mr. Thumb's eyes widened at the prospect, and he felt a surge of adrenaline. He fucking loved it when the stakes were high.